Thing number four, Gary, as we're moving along on this week's version of the five things, the quotes, shocking stress of buy now, pay later.
Yeah, so this has been something that we've been talking about a lot in this space on the five things. We've talked a lot about buy now, pay later. And, it was kind of funny when people were putting, like a McDonald's Happy Meal or a Big Mac on buy now, pay later. That was kind of funny. And then a week or two ago, we were talking about the dangers of people using these products for their monthly rent, and how misleading that marketing was. Acting like people paying fees to pay their rent late is somehow financial freedom. And so, it's been framed in a really misleading way. But there was a survey done by Harris last week. And Rob, listen to some of these, the impacts of buy now, pay later. They interviewed people who are using it. 54% of people spent more than they could afford, 34% worse off financially. 31% were surprised by how much they owe every month. I don't ask me how they borrowed money and then they're surprised that they owe money every month. Um, 28% are falling behind on other lines of credit. 27% have gone into significant debt. Almost one quarter of people report that their spending is out of control. This is not a good thing. This is a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the one answer is spend less, right? But you're pointing out an issue that people just have no clue of what it is that they're actually spending on. I think another thing to call out is we already see in reports the all-time high that is credit card debt, but with the BNPL, that's not even accounted for in that statistic either.
Yeah. So, Rob, you bring up two great points. One of them, it's really easy to say to people, we'll just spend less. The problem is, people have a certain amount of fixed expenses. And, when all of their paycheck is going to their rent and to put gas in their car so they can get to work, for childcare so somebody can watch their kids when they go to work, you have to feed your kids. Like, people may not have a ton of flexibility. And so, it can be really insensitive to say to people, we'll just spend less. And they realize, wait a minute, we don't have a lot of room. And inflation has been really tough on people. Um, from a finance point of view, from a macroeconomic point of view, certainly people have been concerned that consumer credit has hit an all-time high. I think we're around 1.2 or 1.3 trillion dollars right now. That's a really big number. The thing that concerns me is that buy now, pay later is not reported the same as other kinds of credit, meaning there could be hundreds of billions of dollars of buy now, pay later debt. That is, here it is, 28% of people are saying they're falling behind in other lines of credit. It's not being counted as household debt. And so my concern is that things for a lot of families and for the aggregate indebtedness of the country may be worse than people think it is.
Yeah, scary situation and one that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think you do either. And it's going to be an interesting and maybe rocky road over the
Yeah.
next 12 to 24 months.
Rob, I agree with you. And the really hard thing is I know it's just really easy to say to people, spend less, cut back. But sometimes I talk to people or read stories about people and they don't have anywhere to cut.
Right.
What do you do? Like if they have two kids, would you like say to one kid, I'm sorry, we can't afford you? I don't know how you do that. And so inflation has been really hard for people. And one of my biggest complaints with the way our government is handling things is we used to handle these things through taxation, which forced people to have conversations because you had to write a check at the end of the year, or saw that money taken out of your paycheck every week or every month. Congress now has decided they're going to fund our our country, our government through inflation. And so we just see the government debt going up. We see the treasury monetizing this debt, creating dollars to pay for it. And that's why everything's getting so expensive. And so the truth is, it's kind of funny. We're saying, how do we solve this? This is one of these things where I don't know that some of these American families may not be in a position where they can cut spending, but Congress should cut spending. They're not going to, but they should. And that's the thing that would create room for people and make it easier for these people to breathe. And that's what has to happen. I'm not optimistic that they will do the right thing, but that's the number one thing they could do to create some space and some breathing room for these families that are really hurting.
Yeah, it's just
reduce inflation.
it's a vicious cycle in the sense of you talk about your fixed costs. Now all of a sudden your food costs go up by X% number, your insurance costs go up X% number,
Right.
and yet wage growth doesn't nearly match what it needs to be. And so here we are, and it will be interesting.
Yeah,
Thing number five.
and
Yeah, go
people
ahead, Gary.
they no, you're right. And people keep saying, people in finance keep saying, yeah, but they got pay raises. Yeah, but they got pay raises of 4 or 5%, which isn't bad. But when they tell you inflation is 3%, Rob, do you believe that number? I don't.
Yeah, right. We've talked about that ad nauseum, right? And just you see that inflation number, the cost of living, depending on where you're at in the country too. And then the answer is, well, just get up and leave. I'm being talking in California. I know you're in
Yeah.
Connecticut, New York, probably a lot of that happening there too. But for some people, just getting up and leaving isn't necessarily an option. And so, yeah, it's just so difficult. And then we see jobs reports coming out that's saying, oh, well, we're increasing jobs. Well, in reality, no, people are just having to work more jobs because their
Right.
regular job isn't paying the bills.
Yeah, the real answer to this, I think, is not for people to lecture the American families and tell them, just spend less. Just stop spending. I think the answer is for Congress to spend less, and that will create less inflation, and that'll give people room to breathe. I think that's what has to happen. Again, I'm not optimistic, and we had that great thing by Mike Shedlock, Mish, economist on the DKI Board of Advisors a couple weeks ago, who made the point we're not going to be able to vote our way out
Mm.
of this. Whoever
Mm.
wins in November, they're not going to cut spending,
I
and
will
that
not be holding my breath for that. That's for sure.